used to get them in car doors about 5–10 years ago, but they learned their lesson very quickly with those ones there. They're mostly used nowadays with filing cabinets and certain varieties of disc locks you get on the sides of vans. They pretty much work off of the same principle as the pin and barrel approach, except that you use 2 wafers to match up with different heights of pins. Whenever the 2 match up together, it'll be a straight line allowing you to turn around. They work by having different ledge heights on different sides. That's what can make it a nightmare. They pretty much work off the same principle as a rake or a jiggler. You have to actually knock them up or down over and over again to get them in place. There's no way to pick them one by one. It's sad, but they can be done one by one. You're just going to be living about a 20-minute job, but it'll bore you senseless along the way because you'll hear about 30 clicks that will not make you feel happy at all. Jigglers are the small little lightweight ones that you see there. They were quite often used for a period about 2002. They were a very big seller and taken quite a lot by the police because they found out there was a major defect with a certain brand of car's door that if you jiggle for a couple of seconds, it seemed to automatically pop the electronic recognition system, which led to a little bit of trouble with that company. I'm not allowed to name any points. All I'll say is McLaren weren't happy with the partnership. But they were very nice, they worked quite quickly, and they didn't leave any evidence when you tried to get the car off afterwards, as the shove a screwdriver and break off the lock approach. The other one, not my favourite, I'm personally not a fan of these things, bump keys. Everyone seems to be obsessed with them when it comes to lockpicking. It's very, very simple in design. It's just a key to be dialed down to the lowest point of the lock. You stick in and you work off bouncing motion scene. You knock it over and over again with a hammer, or in a great story I read on Moxie Marlinspike's website, the guy who stripped SSL, he used a cheese grater whenever he was younger as his bump hammer. I thought it was quite ingenious that he got it working. But it works on the same principle. You make the pins jump up and turn again to try and lock the barrel in place. Again, mechanical exploitation. The last 2 that you'll get here are, again, more bypass methods. A pick gun, the one that Ryan dropped in beforehand, is essentially just a rake pick on the end of an automatic tool that will jump them up for you over and again, one by one. However, if you don't do it correctly at the point, you will break that pick very, very quickly. It's designed to try and be fast and effective. It's used often by security firms, law firms, to try and get in a door, but usually when they're that desperate, they'll go for the last of a force attack, mainly by knocking the thing down. You don't really want to do that. It's not really breaking a pick, well, not breaking a lock. It technically is, but it will cost you a lot to replace that. The pin entombler is the most common lock you will actually find. It's very, very simple in design. It's a series of pins held in place of one barrel inside another. Whenever you match the 2 up along the shear line where they're cut in different points, it'll allow the plug to turn around inside, which will cause the bolt on the other side to turn, allowing you to open the door. The way it works whenever you're picking it is you want to use a minimal amount of pressure. A lot of people will automatically, whenever they get a tension wrench, jam it down as hard as they can get it. But if you do that, you will lock it so far that you can't get the pin up and locked into place. It'll go too far and get stuck, or it won't catch at all. You have to use just the right amount. It requires a fair bit of practice. But with time, you'll actually pick it up very quickly. It's just, whenever I watch people jam it in and jump up and down, you're sitting kind of going, you're not going to get that lock open. You need to learn to feel the pressure of it. Whenever they all get into place on the shear line, you will hear a satisfactory click, unless you come up against one of my personal favourite challenges, and the door will swing right open for you. But these are a couple of the countermeasures you will meet along the way. Nothing will ever be as simple as it seems, as that's pretty much the way of the world. The newest one they've come out with that I'm quite happy with is anti-collision foam. It's still very new. It stops bump key users very, very quickly and pick gun users, in that it absorbs the impact and stops the pins from jumping up from the solid hit. It'll catch them along the way, pretty much destroying any chances of trying to bypass the lock that way, which is quite nice because then you're forced to pick it. And that's always the more fun method. Security pins are probably the most common you will come up against if you choose to take up this. Spools are not that common, but they are nasty when you meet them. They'll give you a little false click that makes you think you've caught it on the shear line as you slide it down, until you realise you've got it caught at the bottom. And whenever you go to release the tension, they'll still catch again because they're wider at one point rather than the other, forcing you to either restart the entire lock or be very, very careful when you're actually trying to drop the pin again. It'll usually be about anywhere from 8 to 15 degrees they'll actually let you work. After that, you're looking at a mushroom pin, which is similar to it, except for the fact that it gives a slightly thinner head, thinking you've got more space of it, until you slide further down the pin and realise you've kind of screwed yourself over for the entire lock. Serrated pins are the ones I will not cry, have made me cry on multiple occasions. They've made me miserable quite often. They're similar to the way spool works, except they're 3 times along the length of the pin. So you'll think you have 3 different shear lines maybe, and then the real one, but you don't know which one it is until you actually get to it, or until you know the noise. So you'll get to about maybe 5 pins in out of a 6-pin lock, you get the 6th, you hear the satisfying click, and nothing will happen, because you realise you've caught one of them, or all of them, God forbid, which you really do not want. It's quite nasty, because you hear that nasty little click, and you think, yes, got it open. It's like being given a massive gift, and then you open it, it's like, shit, those ugly jumpers. I'm going to have to restart everything again. It's designed pretty much to make you suffer as much as you can until you eventually give up. If you try and bump keep with that and become successful, I will happily buy you a pint, because those things I have never managed to get working with that. But that's a little bit out of date about that particular lock at the bottom there. It was a 7-pin half moon lock that worked on 7 serrated pins. It was an absolute nightmare. If you managed to pick it up, I think it was a C36, it was like the size of my fist, it was huge. But if you manage to pick it up and pick it in under 16 minutes, I will get you another drink for it. The record for it worldwide is 9 minutes. I'm still sitting on 19. They released a new one recently that's still 7 pins, but they're serrated pins that are made of glass core, so they break whenever you apply a bit too much tension. Still haven't managed to pick that one yet. So if you manage to get your hands on that one, I will quite happily take you on for that. Further countermeasure you get, the one I was talking about earlier when you get the bar turning around, is a sidebar. It's one that you will find quite nice because it will give you a different layer of challenge as you go along. You'll get to a certain point around it, and then the pins will lock themselves out again against a new bar, and you'll have to pick a whole new set because you won't have gravity to help you as much this time. You're going to have to be a bit more careful or go round for a secondary twist. It can be difficult, but whenever you come up against them, usually it means that there's something really good on the other side of that lock, or you find yourself a really good challenge which you'll want to do again. The main 3 companies I know that actually use them, they're not that common anymore since RFID locks and electronic magnetic locks came in recently. They're not as much. The main ones I know that still use them are Abertay, ASSA and Eurospec. Eurospec are commonly used in student residency doors and all, so if you think you can take up your own doors, you may be a little bit sadly mistaken. The last bit I will put on is forensics. Whenever you think you've done your job, you've picked your door, you think, oh, this is great, take a look at what you've done afterwards. Chances are you'll see there's little bits of metal shavings or something at the bottom, or a curve around the bottom. You're going to see there's going to be damage to the lock, depending on the way you've done it. If you've raked it, you're always going to damage the pins. For example, whenever you do the bypass approach, if you take a bump key, rake gun or a rake pick, the rapid movement consistently will cause the pins to smash against the side of the barrel, which will cause them to wear down for one thing, as well as the barrel and your pick itself. That will leave a lot of evidence inside the lock. If you were to check afterwards, it's a lot of forensic, pretty much gold dust, because they can check your picks for damage to match that, and if they do, you're not in the best boat. Carding and shim bypassing will always leave small chips on the top of the lock. Even if it's steel at that point, it'll leave scratches on it to show that it's been smacked about and tried to open. You can't get a perfect card bypass. The way it works is by friction forcing to actually knock it open. If you do manage to get it open any other way, at that point, it's obviously not a very good lock, but you will always leave at least 1 or 2 marks, so it's a very telltale method. The tension wrench will always, sadly, even though it's your best friend, it will always leave something in its wake, be it a little bit of paint, a little bit of dust. It'll always be there, or even if worse comes to worse, it'll get jammed and bent out of place. It's a horrible thing that happens. Whenever that happens, you're going to realise you've put too much pressure on it during the time. Take that as a note to maybe lower your pressure as you go further, or you're going to wind up having to buy a new set of tension wrenches, and that's never a nice feeling to break in. And that is, any questions?
Why bother making a lock when you can just drill it out?
For a lot of people, usually it's the challenge, and for the other one is you don't want people to figure out that something's gone on. If you want to get in somewhere and get out again without getting caught, I think a drilled hole open in the lock is going to be a little bit noticeable.
But surely you have to weigh off the time that it's going to take you, as opposed to drills on the lock.
Oh yeah, no, definitely on that point. For speed ones, that's what they use, likes of rake picks and all. If you drill straight in, you'll get occasionally glass core bolts and such, the type you'll see in films. If you break the glass when not there, they won't actually be able to move, and it will force the bar fully locked in, which means you're going to have to cut down that part of the wall or cut off the door around that section entirely, which means even more time and effort. If you pick the lock, it gives you a chance to maybe bypass that.
With the choice between a good quality set of picks or a good quality set of tension wrenches, which would you choose?
Tension wrenches every time. Because you can have the best picks in the world. If your tension wrench bends after a tiny little bit of pressure, it's far too thin, it will not give you enough to actually hold the barrel, and you'll just be buying more and more of them over and over again when you'd rather
How much would you pay for a set of tension wrenches, roughly?
For my personal favourite set, I won't lie, I have spent £8 on my personal favourite set of 3 tension wrenches, which I had lost one last night.
It seems unrealistic to say that we can just get rid of normal locks. So, in that case, which actual physical lock do you recommend? What's the hardest one to break?
The most nightmarific one I'd say right now would be glass serrated pins. They are an absolute nightmare. RFID ones and all work still off a physical lock on the inside. It's, if you take a look at the bottom, there's always still a physical lock. They have to have that as a security measure to open it up afterwards if someone gets caught, say, in a fire. If you were doing it for commercialized, I'd say a disc lock. They're a little bit more nightmaric. Based off wafer locks, but you have to rotate them as well. It's kind of a barrel meets a wafer. They're not that common, but they will still take a lot of time to try and get open.
What is a wafer lock?
A wafer lock, usually you find it on filing cabinets and such, you know, the double-sided pins. It's pretty much you have to balance out 2 sides to actually get the barrel to open up fully for you to turn it around.
Alright.
So you talked about keyed locks and locks with keys, but what about safe locks, padlocks?
Padlocks, again, work off the shim point. They work off still a similar lock on the inside. Safes are more logical rotary. It's all about listening for the points of it actually catching on certain pieces. It's more safe cracking. That's a different skill really, so it is. Not one I've ever taken up. Love to. I will eventually, but not just yet.
How different is it? Because I've tried it, you know, you get a stethoscope and you're listening and you're like...
It's fairly different because you do have to listen for a very different tone when you actually click it. If you go too far, you reset the entire thing altogether. It works off a ratchet pinion approach. It kind of like it'll roll up, and whenever you go too far, it'll just drop down again.
So if we were to get one of those for society, would you be willing to give it a go?
You'd probably find me in here for about 4 or 5 hours a night trying to get out.
Any other questions?
For someone that might want to get into lockpicking as a hobby, where would you buy like a nice beginner set of lockpicking?
A great beginner set and such, as naive as it sounds and points to the internet, if you take a look around, you can find maybe your local tool chapter. There are Lockpicking Society groups there all over the place. You'll find them in every country.
So it is just
There's not around here. It is pretty much, if you look around, you go around. If you even ask someone who maybe has a bit of interest in the points, they'll be able to try and point you in the right direction and find some ones. If you're looking to buy your own set, happily give us a shout. I'll see if I can maybe get you a discount on the ones that I work with and see if we can possibly do it, because even 5 of you did, that's a fairly big order still to them in one go. Anyone else?
Mortise locks.
Don't even talk to me about those things, they're horrible. They are pretty much just the bane of everyone on earth. I spent about 3 days attempting one before I gave up. They give you about 1,000 false positives that they actually work, and the only way you know it has worked is you don't have any positives whatsoever. You have to go with that, I've done everything wrong, great, the door's not open. There's no logic behind them. Everyone?
Out of interest, has anyone done lockpicking before? Anyone at all? No one's had to do it before? Okay, so I guess we've got a lockpicking for you to teach then.
I don't know, I'm hijacking you lot first anyway.